Yes, please.
Oh, get right here.
Can you go back to your camera real quick? I think I swiped up.
Is it okay if I'm right here?
Yes. Yes, perfect.
Alrighty.
No problem.
I love
Hey,
that.
you're doing well. we are going to go back to the year 1849, California. What was going on?
Gold rush.
Absolutely. Now, you guys, don't let these women put you to shame when they come to answering questions. California gold rush was going on. People sailing to California from all around the world. People who did not sail to California, they came across, some of them, most of them, came across on the old wagon trails like the Santa Fe, the Oregon, California. Another trail was called the Old Immigrant Trail that is Highway 50 today. It's about 7 miles to the east of us, part of it is. And why did they call it the Old Immigrant Trail?
Immigration.
No, because it was old. Now, you'll notice that my questions are stupid.
Old
if you
immigrant
feel
trail.
like you have a stupid answer, say it. You are probably right. Now, as they came across the Old Immigrant Trail, what did they do? They stopped where Dayton is today. Not Dayton, Ohio, Dayton, Nevada. That's about 5 miles that way. They would stop along the Carson River, named after Kit Carson. They would rest there, and they would also wait. Why were they waiting? Because they were waiting for the snow to melt on the Sierra Nevadas. The Sierra Nevada mountain range is that way, about 10, 15 miles. And they were waiting for the snow to melt because they did not want to become like the Donner Party of the winter of 1846 and 47, who ran out of food, stuck in the snow, wound up eating each other. These people in Dayton looked at each other like, I don't want to eat you, and they'd be like, I don't want to eat you either. So they would wait, and they started looking for gold. First documented gold find was in June or July 1849. Word got out by 1851. You had 200 to 300 placer miners working from the Dayton area that was not there in 1849, and they were working up through a canyon called Gold Canyon. These miners, placer miners, they were only going after the surface gold. They were not like the macho men who were doing the hard rock mining up here, but that did not start up here back then when they were coming up through Gold Canyon, finding around 1/3 of an ounce of gold per man per day. Today's money, that would be, we'd be making over $1,000 each day finding gold. Okay, back then silver was $1.29 an ounce, gold was under $20 an ounce. As they were coming up through Gold Canyon, they found this bluish clay, like a rock, but it was real soft. They didn't know what it was. They would curse it, they would throw it aside, and it was clogging up their rocker boxes or sluice boxes. And towards the end of the 1850s, one of those guys by the name of Harrison took some of that down to California to see what it was. Well, found out it was worth around $3,500 to the ton. It probably had 2,800 to 3,000 ounces of silver plus gold in it. 1 ton of blue stuff would fill up 2 ore carts like that one over there, this side of that silver pump. Men working with minerals is a lot like men and women meeting in a bar. Not saying that any of you did, but the way of it was that when a woman would meet a man in a bar, finding out he ain't worth nothing, she'd curse him and kick him aside. Same way with the minerals. Men treated minerals the same way, but once you find out they're worth a lot of money, well then, they would turn around and fall in love with that stuff, and then it continued. In 1859, we find that the mines here were the claims for them were being staked. The mine here, the claim, it was 400 feet wide, 1,400 feet long. That means anything below us in that area would be the mine owners, nobody else's. So, you want to start a real quick war? Go into another man's mine and start taking his silver and gold, and you'll have a battle on your hands real quick. That happened back here in 1864. This mine, when 10,000 people lived in Virginia City, they came into contact with a fissure vein. The fissure vein ran about 4 miles long to the north and to the south of us. The widest point at that fissure vein was 1,500 feet, and it dipped down at a 45-degree angle. When this mine found that fissure vein, they followed it into the mine next to us called the Potosi mine. When that happened, all hell broke loose. 1864, 10,000 people living up here, 215 of them are lawyers. The sharks were here for blood, and this mine had to go to court proving they were following a fissure vein and not a smaller vein called a fragmentary vein. It cost them $1.3 million to prove it. Not long after that, the Potosi mine, they find the fissure. What do? Come into the collar, back to court. By 1865, they were tired of giving their money to lawyers, and they became the Collar Potosi mine. Now, the man who operated or owned this mine in the early days, his name was William Collar. The man who helped him stake that claim, his name was H.T.P. Comstock. Ever hear of him? He is the man whom the Comstock lode is named after. I have no problem calling a spade a spade. Mr. Comstock was a liar. He was a cheat. He was a scoundrel. He was a womanizer of the lowest order, but he swindled his way into being a 1/6 owner of the Ophir mine, a rich mine 1 mile north of us. And also the Comstock lode was named after him, just like politicians today have things named after them, good or bad. So, we find that another man who was a 1/6 owner, his name was George Hearst. He would be soon to be father of William Randolph Hearst, who owned Hearst Castle. So, a lot of history up here. This town, a lot of people dressed in suits. The women wore dresses, having parasols. This was the richest place on earth. How rich was it? It helped pay the Civil War. America was deeply in debt to Europe. Also, it helped build the city of San Francisco. Also, these mines had their problems in them. Number one was timbering. When we look at these trees, they are not thick, strong trees. Even though they are pretty, some people would love to hug them, but they're not strong enough to support the earth. A man who came from Prussia, 27 years old, his name was Philippe Dietesheimer, came up with an invention called square set timbering. 1 foot square timbers, notched out at the ends, having squares. When a miner would blow a facing wall, the carpenters would come in with the square set timbering and shore up the earth. If it was not for his invention, they could not have mined this area. Where did they get the timber from?
Lake Tahoe.
Correct. They got it from the east shore of Lake Tahoe. They cut down 100 square miles of trees. That means that if that happened today, oh boy, people, tree huggers, EPA, they would all have a conniption fit. But back then, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. Who cares? Let's go cut some trees down. I like trees myself. So, but I also like money. Now, another problem in the mines was flooding. That mine across from us pumped out 5 million gallons of geothermal water a day. Cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars annually to do that. The miners who worked in that mine were paid $6.50 a day. Why? Because they were working down at about 3,300 feet straight down in the earth. It was around 130, 140 degrees. They'd strip to the shorts. They would work for 15 minutes. Then they would go into a room filled with ice, drink about 3 gallons of water per man per day. That is exactly where streaking started in America, was the 3,300 foot level of that mine. This is not an intellectual conversation. And so we also find in the mines the problems with flooding, and I'm almost done, flooding and ventilation. Very important in a mine.
Yeah,
You've got to have good air, sir.
Don't fart.
And we'll get into that too. So, very good, very good. So, we find that there was a man who came from Prussia. His name was Adolf Sutro. This guy, he was a cigar salesman, okay? Just a little old cigar salesman. He comes up with an idea to dig a tunnel 4 miles away from us east, coming underground, because that's what tunnels do, coming into contact with the Savage mine 4 mines over from us at the 1,640 foot level. We'll call that the 1640. When he came into contact with that mine, we find that he was only a fraction of an inch off with his calculations. When he came into contact with the Savage, they could drain their water, they had better air. He therefore dug 2 lateral drifts, one to the north, one to the south, 1.5 miles long each. Therefore, all of these mines going down that deep could run their geothermal water through his lateral to his tunnel and out into the desert. That is exactly why the state of Nevada is covered, and I love your hat.
Thank you.
No, not you, hers.
Oh, hers?
So,
Yeah.
yours is nice too. So, we find that these mines could run their geothermal water through his laterals, tunnel, and out into the desert. That means that the state of Nevada, being covered with sagebrush, was completely flooded with geothermal water. And that is why there is so much growth in this state today. That is not true. I made that up. Now, within a 5-mile radius of us, back in the day, there were 16,000 mining claims. That means that there were over 15,800 scammers. One way to scam a person out of their money: take a good old shotgun shell, open the end of it up, pour the BBs out, stuff a bunch of little gold nuggets in it, shoot it into a dirt wall, tell everybody you're finding gold. They in turn would come by and look at it, find gold, and you tell them, you know, I hate to sell this mine, but my grandma, she's dying back in New York City. I got to go see her before she croaks. They would buy the mine, you would take the money, never to be seen again. I said all of that to say this and right this way. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a tip bucket. My grandmother is dying in New York City. She's 132 years old. I got to get back to her before she kicks the bucket. Also, if you like to read paranormal, right here, this is a toilet.
That's what we should be
Sir, if
doing.
you put money in there, I'll grab it. Now, when I came here in 1860 or 1870s, if you want to see a picture of me when I had hair, if you go to the Way It Was Museum, you will see a picture of me there. I came looking for a piece of antiquity. What did I find? I found a piece of miner's poop from 1862. This is not for sale.
Petrified?
Right this way? And I
No,
know
it's
some of
fresh.
you Okay. So this room being called a stope, and with it extracting the ore and the waste rock. How did they do it? Right behind this gentleman with his bow right here, we find that this piece of machinery is called a hoist. To show you or to tell you how much timber they needed in these mines, that little old hoist right there would consume 15 to 20 cords of wood a day. That is one of hundreds of pieces of machinery here on the Comstock lode that needed wood to produce steam that was burned on the surface to operate. So then the steam was pumped down into the mines. The man who operated this hoist, what was he called?
A hoistman?
You are absolutely correct. The hoistman made $4.50 a day. He made 50 cents more a day than the miners who worked in this mine. They didn't go down as deep as the mine across from us, so they got $4. Regardless, though, the miners who worked here on the Comstock lode in the Virginia City area, they were predominantly from Ireland. What would that make them? Irish, correct. So,
Short.
Celtic.
Catholic.
good. Good. I feel like a teacher. I got a good class. So, we find that the hoistman who operated the hoist, he could not talk to anybody while he worked, nor could anybody talk to him. If he was caught talking, he was fired on the spot. The reason why, when we follow this hoist, or look at the hoist, then follow the cable up and above my head and over, there is a steel bucket right here. Down, and if y'all want to move around, take a look, take a picture, go ahead. Now, this steel bucket would be raised and lowered into what is called a winze, another tunnel. This tunnel went down a total of 200 feet. Now, it's been backfilled, so we can't see that far down, and that is unfortunate. The reason why he had to be quiet was because he had to listen to the signals that this bill was making. There was a rope attached to the end of the handle. The miners 100 and 200 feet below us, when they needed the hoistman to do something, they would ring the bell, and if the bucket was filled with rock, the hoistman would raise it. It would come up gravitationally. It would tip over when it made it up to here. The rock would go into an ore cart, and out the drift it would go. If it was waste rock, not worth nothing, it was pushed out and dumped on the side of the hill. If it was lower high-grade ore, it would go out and to the left to the stamp mill where they would crush the rock. What would the miners do when they would hear the bell ring?
One would be race rock and the other one wouldn't be.
No, what they would do is they would all get in a circle, hold hands, and sing the song, "You Can Ring My Bell." Okay, so we'll get past that. Are there any questions? All right.
How did they get down there in the bucket?
No. Good question. The more questions you ask, it just opens up a
Get
whole
your money's
bunch
worth,
more.
guys. Come on.
Yeah. So, the way the miners would enter the mine, well, this one, they could come through the way we came, and then the men down below, in the old days, when they first started to dig a shaft for a mine, they would start to dig the hole. As it got deeper, they'd have a metal bucket, they'd have a windlass. A man would stand in the bucket, they'd lower him deeper down into the earth. Sometimes the men would fall out of the bucket and get killed doing that, but that was the early way. This way, they'd come in through the side on level 1 that we're in, and that's how they would make it back here. Not all mines had a side entrance like this mine, and the other men, to go down to level 2 or level 3, they would go to the hoisting house behind us about 100 feet up on the surface. get on a safety cage and be lowered down into the mine, get off level 2, 3. This had a total of 12 levels in the mine.
How far did it go down?
1,340 feet, straight down. Every 100 feet got 3 to 5 degrees hotter, not cooler. Why? Geothermal water. Now, good questions. I guess with you wearing a pink hard hat, that gives you the right. So, back over here, we are looking at a rock wall. In mining terminology, a rock wall like this would be called what?
A dam.
It is called a facing wall. But now with you saying a dam, that is a good answer. With so much geothermal water in the earth here on the Comstock lode, a miner could be drilling a facing wall. All of a sudden, he hits a body of geothermal water. That scalding water would come through the hole and it would burn him. That was a big problem with mines on the Comstock lode. This facing wall, when a miner came to work in the early days, it was his job to, if he was working at a facing wall, to drill a sufficient number of holes in the rock wall, fill it with black powder, put the fuses, light it, go running, and blow that wall 3 feet back, muck out the rock, and that would be an 8-hour shift for $4. $4 would buy you 25 steak dinners, 80 beers. It was good money. They were the best paid miners here on the Comstock lode. And these men, when they came from overseas, there were no child labor laws. They would start working in a mine 8, 9, 10 years old. Wow. It was a completely different world when these boys were growing up. It was so important for them. They wanted to become men and they wanted to work with men. They did not want to wear little butterfly wings and all of that, like today. So we find, and we're going to go ahead and take another trail real quick. When we look at this machinery right here, what are these? Anybody know?
Those are the pipes for the steam, aren't they?
They are steam-operated drills. These drills, the miners did not prefer using them. Number one, they sound like Harley Davidsons without exhaust pipes. They're very loud. Number two, if a miner was operating one of these, it got away from him, it could kill him. And the biggest reason is when the tips of these drill bits made contact with the facing wall, they would make a real fine powder. And it would be like baby powder. The miners would breathe that powder. Eventually they would get silicosis, and a lot of them died from it. Therefore, they gave this machinery a nickname. Any idea what they were called?
Killers.
You are correct. Widowmakers. Very good. I'm going to walk this way. If some of you want to walk that way, that would be good. And you can see down the winds as well. And I'm going to get over here on my perch. If you want to stay seated, you go right ahead.
I'm going to go see over there.
Okay. Any questions while we're moving around? All righty. When a miner was killed in a mine, who would take care of the miner's widow and children?
The owner?
No, it wasn't the owner. It was the fellow miners. The fellow miners, they pooled their money together. A man would take the money to the widow, wish her the best, and life went on. As simple as that. So, we know that the miners who worked in this mine were predominantly Irish. The miners who worked in the mines down in the Gold Hill area, they were from England.
You okay?
They were from Cornwall, and they were known as Cousin Jacks. I'm not exactly sure why, but the women from Cornwall were known as Cousin Jenny. Jack and Jenny are the names of donkeys. Now, we have grown up being told that donkeys are dumb and all of that. Like somebody say dumbass or jackass or whatever. I've owned donkeys. They are not stupid. When we look at the equestrians, we find the mule is the smartest. The donkeys are the next smartest. The horses are the not the least smartest, but they're not as smart as a donkey.
Depends on the breed.
The very good. And the mines, when the horses came into the mines, they would rub their ears on the timbers and they would get scared. They would buck up and knock themselves out. The mules and donkeys, they would touch their ears to the timbers, but they would not buck up. The sad thing about the donkeys and the mules is that once they were brought into a mine, this is where they would spend the rest of their life. Since they, in turn, were in the mine for so many years, working in such darkness, and just kind of giving you an idea that being in something like this, we find that they would eventually go blind. So that was sad.
It's the ultimate service animal.
Really?
They're like almost police cadaver dogs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why they have them in Pinocchio, the minor scene.
Absolutely. So we find here in this mine that it went down 1,340 feet, and the preferred way that the miners, see, I hit my head before. Now the preferred way for the miners, and I'm going to stand back here, to drill was not using, oh no thanks, was using a single drill bit and a sledgehammer, and they would hit it, turn it, just like a drill bit. Now, when one miner used one drill bit and one sledgehammer, what was that called?
Teamwork?
No.
No, he's working by himself.
Single jack.
You are correct. Thank you. When two miners worked together, they would use a longer drill bit and a heavier sledgehammer. And what was that called?
Two single jack.
Double jack. Very good. So, there was a lot of single and double jacking going on. Now, we find...
I want to be a double jacker.
And this is the boom boom room. We call this the boom boom room after hours.
We call this the grotto.
So, don't tell my boss that because he don't know. Now,
How
we
long
find-
have these semi-collapses are? Like, are they old, or have they been since, like, you've been here?
what's that?
Like, the ones throughout the tunnel here and the one right above your
Are there any
head?
original ones?
Some are
Any
original,
original, yeah.
some have been replaced. So, these wedges right here, I put them in this morning, so
Yeah,
we're
right.
doing good. Now, in these
Are you fucking with us,
mines,
or did you really put those in this
Yeah,
morning?
look how old they are.
oh come on, I weathered them myself.
He put them in here right before he brought us
We
in.
we
That's
find
why they're running
that
out.
we find that in these mines there were thousands of rats.
Everyone got quiet.
These rats are not real. How can I tell? All right. The good thing about having rats in the mine is when you come into a mine and you see a rat on the ground and it's dead, that
yeah.
tells you that the air down there is good. When we used to go in old mines, we would in turn have a candle, or we would have a match or a lighter, and
the
we would
oxygen.
hold it up like this, and the flame would burn good. We thought that the air in the mine was good. Fortunately for us, it was. In some mines, when you walk in, you think the air is good, but at your feet there is carbon dioxide. You walk in, you stir it up, then you breathe it, you fall asleep, you never wake up again. They found 3 guys back in the 1990s, not far from here. They were 25 feet in, and they had lost their lives. So, we find also the rats if there was going to be a cave-in, they would get real skittish and run around. Then they would go running. What would the miners do?
They follow.
They sure would. They'd get out. The men from England, Cornwall, the cousin Jacks, they believed in the little people. You may have heard of them being called, called the Tommyknockers. The Tommyknockers were a fictitious character. They stood about 2 feet high. They were the equivalent of Irish leprechauns. What they were known to do, according to the English, is that they would eat some of the miners' food. They would hide some of their tools. If I was a miner back then working in a mine with Englishmen, I would find out who had the wife that could cook, and I would take some of his food, and then when he said, "Where'd my food go?" I would say, "Must be the Tommyknockers." And if he gave me a rough time, I'd hide some of his tools, and he'd say, "Where'd my tool?" It must be the Tommyknockers. So, but the thing about the Tommyknockers that the English miners or the cousin Jacks believed in is that when there was going to be a cave-in, what would the Tommyknockers do?
Bang on the walls.
Scheme.
They would knock.
They would knock.
They would hear, very good, they would hear the knocking, and the miners would go running. Was it really the Tommyknockers knocking on the wood? No.
It was the earth moving.
Breathing.
It was, yes, this timber. This timber would start to move, creaking, and they would get out in a hurry. So, are there any questions? Now, let me go ahead and find this. And we find here that we talked about that blue stuff that the miners were finding. And I'm sorry to stand in front of your face like that. And the miners that were finding that blue stuff, they found out was worth a lot of money. They fell in love with it. I would too. 2 work carts filled over $100,000. I'll take it. Also, if you find a pair of Levi's with the rivets stamped 1873 in a mine, they are worth $100,000. Call up San Francisco, Levi Strauss, and they will tell you $100 grand. Now, we talked about that blue stuff. What did it look like? Well, right here, what we are looking at, we are looking at a silver vein. See it okay? This silver vein right here,
Yeah.
this does not have 2,800 ounces of silver in it. This silver vein has 3 to 5 ounces of silver per ton. That means on the best day, if we mined 1 ton of this out of this mine, after going ahead and going through the big process of getting the silver out of it, it would be worth about $200. Back in the 1860s, it would be worth about $9. It's not worth mining. The yellow rock that we see, what is that called? What do you think that is?
Gypsum?
Sulfur.
It is sulfur, sulfide. Also, the white, that is called quartz. The gray rock is what the silver and possibly microscopic gold is running through. And anything sparkling in the light there, that is probably quartz, not silver, not gold. Minerals can fool people, and it has for years. Also, to the left of this silver vein, we are looking at this facing rock, and this rock is called, anybody know? It is called andesite. And the brown that you see in the andesite, that is, what do you think it is?
Clay.
That is called iron. The white is quartz, the yellow is sulfide. This would be called waste rock or country rock, except it has seams of that gray rock going through it that probably has some silver or gold in it, and it would be called low-grade ore. Okay. Are there any questions? if anybody wants to learn more about gold mining, what you want to do is you want to go on YouTube. There is a man, he was just here about 3 weeks ago, a really cool guy. His name is Jeff Williams. You ever hear of him? This guy is always out looking for gold, and he finds it. He's got a lot of videos. So Jeff Williams is the man. So, any other questions?
What's this little thing over here with the dirt and it's rail? Or is it like a drain? Or
What's
gutter?
that?
Oh,
Is that a gutter right there? I don't know. Oh, here, this thing. Yeah, is that a gutter?
Piece of rail.
Oh, it's just a rail. I thought maybe they ran stuff down there.
That is what we call a rail gutter.
Oh.
Huh? You can stand up
so
over
you're
here.
still right.
Oh.
You're still right.
That's good. If you have a question, don't be shy. It's okay.
So you said it's 1,300 feet down, and
1340.
then there was 13 levels,
There was 12.
12. So every level is 100 feet.
Every 100 feet.
Okay.
And
Watch your head.
when a miner
Pipe
or
here.
miners would be waiting in a station, that is the little room alongside the shaft of a mine, they would be waiting for a safety cage. The hoistman, not talking to anybody, would lower the cage. Let's say they're down at the 9 level, 900 feet underground. They're waiting for the cage. The cage shows up. They in turn walk, get on the cage, 4 men, and then they start being pulled up. 19 feet a second, almost total darkness. If the air quality was not good, a miner would start feeling dizzy or faint. If he did not tell the man next to him to grab a hold of him, he would pass out.
I got a question.
Yes.
How much access do you guys actually have to this mine? Like, how far can you go with the...
This is really it.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's all collapsed in then? Is that...
Yeah, caved in behind us.
Uh-huh.
Then the wind's right over here. That is, that has been backfilled. Also, the shaft for this mine, it's backfilled as
And
well.
where's the shaft at? Where was it?
Yeah,
Where was the entrance?
the entrance was about 100 feet behind us.
Okay.
When you walk out of the tunnel or out of the drift, when you walk out about 100 feet, turn around, look up, you'll see a metal building on the hill. That's where the hoisting house used to be. Any questions? All right. Y'all know where to eat at tonight? Know where to stay?
Yep.
Here in town?
Is this where you guys do the paranormal night tours? In
We're
this room?
going to start doing that.
Oh, okay.
But we haven't started that now. If you want a paranormal experience, and as you can tell, I'm not a kook. I may be full of it at times, but I'm not a nut. I even saw a ghost downtown when I was selling my books in front of the Red Dog Saloon. A man appeared wearing a black suit, black top hat, couldn't make out his face, walked about 6 feet, disappeared. That was it. And it wasn't scary at all. They have the Washoe Club here that you can go to. You could check that out, but then a lot of people say that they did not store bodies in the wintertime back then for the fact that these men were hard rock miners and they could dig a hole in the frozen earth in the wintertime. I have found the creepiest feeling here in Virginia City is going to the old hospital on the 3rd floor.
Okay.
That used to be the Nut House, and that is the creepiest feeling I've ever felt up here.
Talking about the art center.
Yeah, it's an art center today. I don't know if you can get to the 3rd floor anymore because I heard it was roped off. But you can try going there, act like you love art and you're a potential customer, and maybe you can swindle your way up to the 3rd floor. Don't
Town
tell
of
them I
swindlers.
said that.
Town of swindlers.
Yes,
Yeah.
another swindler, just like Henry Comstock. We've all got our game to play. So, are there any other questions? Okay. If anybody would like a picture of this silver vein that did not get one, just let me know when you start to walk out, and I will turn the light off and let you take a picture with the flashlight on. It'll look better that way. And whoever would like to start walking out, you may at this point.
Sure, Caleb.
And thank you for your questions. Good having you here. It was fun. It was real.
So much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all of the great answers. What a man. What a man. Yes, sir. You too, sir.
You know, they teach them well in Jersey.
What's that?
They teach them well in Jersey.
Yeah, yeah. There we go. Watch your heads on the way out.
I hit my head like 6 times on call.
All right. There will be no excessive bending over on your way out.
Try to get it. Yeah, let's do it.
Yes, you may. So what we're going to do is, oh no, you don't even need the flash. And ready? I turned the light off, by the way. Okay. Too soon? Okay. All righty.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did good. All right. Anyone else like to have a picture?
Back up now. That would have been a 200-foot void.
Pretty cool, huh?
Stand up right here.
Wait, this thing is so cool. What is this for? We'll try.
All righty. So,
Yeah.
after all of you, and I'll bring up the rear.
The train. Now out the west side of the train, as we leave our depot here, you might have noticed that steam locomotive we have sitting next to our restroom building there. That locomotive is B&T number 11, the Reno. Built way back in 1872. Actually started her service life on this railroad, pulling a train that they called the Lightning Express. Now that was an express train that would leave Virginia City here at 7 p.m. and arrive in San Francisco the next morning at 11 a.m. Now I know I have everybody, math experts on the train, right? So you've already figured out, wow, 16 hours. That's really fast, right? No, it isn't. But that's usually when I like to remind people this was the 1870s. Well, back then, even lightning was slower. Now, Locomotive has also gone on to star in more than 100 films and TV shows throughout her life. We reacquired her back in 2021 and do hope to one day be able to restore her to operating condition. So if you guys have like a spare $2 million laying around that you're not sure what to do with, I could figure out something pretty quickly. Now you can take a look off the east side of the train, about 800 yards off in the distance there. You notice those large piles of discolored dirt sitting against that hillside there. We see large piles of dirt like that, we actually call them tailings. The reason we call them tailings is because they tell us that a mine used to be there. But if you want further proof that that was probably a mine, go ahead and take a look on top of that hill. You notice that large granite and wood structure sitting up there? That structure there is the head frame remains of the combination shaft mine. Now they called it that because it was actually a combination of 3 different companies that ran it. Well, in the end, they all gave each other the shaft. Well, that mine shaft was in operation. It was actually the deepest mine shaft in the world. Reaches a depth of 3,265 feet. That's almost 2/3 of a mile straight down into the earth. Of course, going in that deep, you do run into a lot of problems. The biggest problem that mine had was millions of gallons of scalding hot water. The water temperature inside that mine was about 190 degrees Fahrenheit. In fact, their water problem was so bad that they had to pump about 4 million gallons of that scalding hot water out of that mine every day just so they could keep digging. Keep in mind, that 4 million gallons of water, well, that was 7 days a week, 365 days a year. For almost 12 years that mine operated. And unfortunately, all the water they pulled up out of it, being so hot and mineralized, was also completely useless. Coming into view off the east side of the train as we clear the hillside here, a little dirt bluff, you'll see that red building off in the distance there. That red building out there is the site of our repair and restoration shop. It's actually where we repair and maintain all the equipment we use here on the railroad today. But that site also has a historical significance for the railroad. See, our shops happen to be built on the exact same site that the original B&T used to construct their 7-stall roundhouse way back in 1869. The east side of the train as we pass by our water tower here. Right when we get past it, take a look just on the other side of our tracks. This area here is the site of the Julia mine. The Julia mine, when it was in operation, well, it was actually the hottest mine to work in up here on the Comstock. But it wasn't hot like it was a great producer with all the gold and silver that they found in it. Nope, that mine shaft, it was literally hot. The air temperature inside that mine, well, it often exceeded 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Meant that those poor miners could only work in shifts of about 15 to 20 minutes before they'd start to slump over and pass out. Now, if they were lucky, their mining buddy working next to them would notice them starting to pass out, and before they hit the ground, well, they'd douse them with a nice cool bucket of water. Just woke them up just enough, they could go back to work for another 15 or 20 minutes. They did this for 8 hours a day, usually 6 days a week. You guys want to know what their daily pay was? All right, I'll tell you. Even if you didn't want to know, I'd still tell you. Well, it was an astounding $4. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably thinking, wow, $4? That doesn't even buy my Starbucks so I can start my day. But back in the 1870s, well, that $4, that made these miners the highest paid miners in the world. You go work for any other mine in the United States as well as the rest of the world, you'd only get about 70 cents a day. Back then, they could take that $4, use 75 cents of it to buy themselves a nice steak dinner. put $1 aside to cover their lodging for an entire week. Or whether they needed it or not, well, a nice hot bath, that only cost them 10 cents. Now we're passing underneath the Highway 341 overpass here. That overpass is built on what remains of our tunnel number 5. Tunnel number 5 was one of 7 tunnels once in use by the Virginia and Truckee Railroad. Of those 7 tunnels, we still utilize 2 of them today. And if you guys are wondering, we do get to go through one of those tunnels in just a little bit here. Oh yeah, the guys with the donkeys always waving. We do 7 times a day, which means we go by here 14 times a day. They're always out there waving, so it makes me wonder how much work do they actually get done in a day. Now you can take a look at either side of the train. You'll see a lot of trees growing out here. This is the part of the trip where I like to go ahead and point out some of my favorite trees. So there's one over there. There's another one up on the hillside here. Oh, look at this one right here. This is a smart train. That's good. But the 2 main types of trees you do see growing out here are the pinyon pine and the mountain juniper. Now the pinyon pine is the one that looks more like a Christmas tree. Also has the pine cones on it. And inside these pine cones, well, you'll find little nuts. Now these nuts happen to be a staple food for the diet of the Washoe and Paiute Indians that lived in the area. See, Virginia City happens to be in an area known as the high desert. And unfortunately, well, not a whole lot of food-bearing crops can grow up here in the high deserts. So those Indians, as I mentioned, they had those nuts for a food source, as well as some of the native species that they could hunt. Now some of the animals that consider this area their home, well, we of course have what Nevada's most famous for, and that's those gorgeous wild mustangs. But we also have mule deer, coyotes, jackrabbits, rattlesnakes, the red-tailed hawks, and the mountain bluebirds. We even have some that the kids can cuddle with. Those, of course, being bobcats and mountain lions. Yeah, and if you guys are skeptical about whether or not you can cuddle with a mountain lion, I assure you, you can do it. One time. Yep. As we make our way around the curve here, off the east side of the train on the hillside closest to us, you'll notice some more large piles of tailings there. You might also notice these large rectangular stones sitting on top of this hill. These large rectangular stones make up the foundational remains of the East Yellow Jacket mine shaft. This mine shaft was started in 1870. The mining company that operated it, well, they were hoping to be able to keep profits up and remain in business, because their main mine shaft, located in Gold Hill, suffered a catastrophic fire. Alright guys, well here it is. Just like I mentioned earlier, this is going to be the best part of the tour, so get ready. We're about to go through this really long, dark tunnel here. Now, if any of you are afraid of the dark, I do recommend that you close your eyes. Well, this tunnel that we're in now, this is tunnel number 4. As I mentioned earlier, this is one of 2 tunnels we still use on the railroad today. This particular tunnel is 465 feet long. It was dug entirely by hand by the Chinese laborers that worked up here. A really good day. Well, they could average about 3 feet of depth into this tunnel, which honestly I think is pretty impressive, given the fact that the only tools they had at their disposal were good old pickaxes and shovels. Yep, no dynamite went into the making of that tunnel, or any of the tunnels on the B&T, in fact. Everybody thought dynamite was too valuable a commodity, and they had to save that for blowing holes in mine shafts. Now you can take a look out the east side of the train there. Off in the distance, you get a great view of the Sierra Nevada mountains out there. All covered in snow, because this year we got a nice early October snowstorm. As you can tell, the mountains out there are covered in snow, but we don't have any over here. That's because those mountains create what's known as a rain shadow effect for us. Basically what that means is the storms that approach those mountains, well, they can't generate enough lift to get over those mountains. So basically they have to, go on a crash diet and lose some weight. How do they do that? They dump most of their moisture over there. By the time they do make it over here, well, there's nothing left for us. Now you can take a look out the west side of the train through these trees here. Back against that rocky hillside as we go by it, you might notice a little cutout in the side of that hill. That cutout back there with all the twisted timbers and steel, well, that's what remains of tunnel number 3. Now, we did try to reopen that tunnel in the early 80s when we were reconstructing the railroad, but unfortunately it was just too dangerous to do it. See those guys that go in there and they clear out a little bit of dirt and then go to lunch, and almost without fail, every time they went to lunch, all their work had been undone. So we figured it was probably safest to build a detour around that tunnel. So this detour we're on now, well, this happens to be the only part of the route we travel on today. It wasn't part of the original V&T. Although going around the tunnel isn't so bad, you do get some pretty great views of the town of Gold Hill below us to the east there. Some of you guys might notice that brown building says Gold Hill Hotel and Saloon on the front of it. That building there was built back in 1859, which makes the Gold Hill Hotel the oldest continually operating hotel in the state of Nevada. Now, also on the same side of the street, you might notice that red brick building has the 3 giant doors on the front of it. That building there was the Bank of California, and they were actually the ones responsible for building this railroad back in 1869. See, back before the railroad was built, well, the only way to be able to get all the ore out of the mines up here down to the stamp mills along the Carson River was by good old mule and wagon train. It was a trip that took about a week. By the mid-1860s, they were producing so much gold and silver ore that it really overwhelmed those wagon trains. So basically, they built this railroad to be able to handle it for them, and what used to take more than a week now only took about a day. As we make our way across the highway here and officially enter the town of Gold Hill, we'll see this red building off the east end of the train. This red building is the Gold Hill Depot, built in 1869. As we go by, you'll get treated to some live music here in our pumpkin patch. If you guys want more music, just buy a ticket for the next train at 1:20. We'll bring you down and actually let you off so you can go get a pumpkin. Now, something that'll be coming up on the west side of the train on this hillside here. You guys might notice this large wooden structure on top of this hill. This thing that looks like it's probably the world's best slide. Not really, though. But this structure here is part of the Upper Yellow Jacket mining shaft. Basically what the miners would do is they would bring the ore up out of that shaft, send it down that really great slide there, and load it on cars and trucks that could take it down to the mills along the Carson River. A few splinters, yeah. Now also off the east side of the train and down the hillside a little bit, coming into view, you guys might notice that large structure there with the 2 giant wheels through it. That structure looks the way it does because those timbers are actually coated in a concrete-like substance. They did that to hopefully prevent it from burning during a fire. Now, the particular fire they were concerned about, well, that was that great fire I alluded to earlier in 1870. That was the mine shaft that suffered that catastrophic fire. And unfortunately, that mine shaft is also the site of the worst mining disaster ever in Nevada history, as 39 miners unfortunately perished during that fire. Now we'll be stopped here in Gold Hill for just a minute, so if you guys wanted to stand up and take some pictures, you're more than welcome to. But luckily, there was one thing back then that traveled quicker than that good old Lightning Express train I mentioned, and that was good old rumors and gossip. So it didn't take long for word to spread that that muck they were just piling up on the side of their mining claims was actually valuable silver ore. And they wasted no time, getting that stuff cleaned up and loaded and processed too. Said that after they figured out what that muck was, well, they mined more than $300 million worth of it out of the hills up here. And keep in mind, that was in late 1800s dollars. So just imagine what that's worth today. About $8.7 billion. Yeah, that's quite an allowance, isn't it? Uh-huh. All right, but if I can go ahead and have you guys take your seats again for me, please. We do need to start our return trip to Virginia City.
Is there any silver left?
There might be silver left, but they're not allowed to mine for it anymore. Yeah. Ironically, back in the early 80s, this entire area was declared a National Historic Landmark. So the one thing that made you historic and famous is now the one thing you're not allowed to do anymore. D3, eyeball. But I honestly think a lot of the not being able to look for silver up here anymore has to do with this little organization known as OSHA. See, since it's a historic landmark, you're not allowed to do conventional modern mining, which is open pit mining. And OSHA's not real big on putting a bunch of guys in a bucket and dropping them in a deep hole in the earth anymore. Something that'll be coming up on the west side of the train here. This hill side that has our uncomfortable slide on it, well, it'll start to slope down and meet the ground. And when it does, you'll see that single lowly tree sitting there. As we go by it, take a look past that tree and down a little bit, you'll see a bunch more trees growing in a canyon down there. A canyon down there full of all those trees, well, it's known as Gold Canyon. And we call it that because that was actually the site of the first gold discovery up here, way back in 1859. After gold was discovered up here, both the towns of Virginia City and Gold Hill, where they pretty much exploded in population. The town of Gold Hill grew to more than 7,000 people, while Virginia City had a population of close to 25,000 people. It's quite a bit different today, where as you can see on the sign on the Gold Hill Depot, they have a population of 69. Virginia City has a population that's right around 720. Now coming up on the west side of the train, it'll be in front of the train. But as we go by this rocky hillside again, take a look off the west side and toward the front through the trees. You'll notice that large round cutout on the side of that hill. There it is right there, through those trees. A large round cutout there. Well, it happens to be the other entrance for tunnel number 3. However, I don't recommend you go exploring that tunnel anytime soon. We did recently find out that a family of mountain lions has decided to make that tunnel their forever home. Yeah, I'll let them have that forever before I chase them out of there. But if you guys are worried about being attacked by mountain lions while on our train, I assure you, you have nothing to worry about from those tunnel mountain lions. See those lions? They can jump like 100 feet. When we go by the opening of that tunnel, we're only like 20 feet away. So basically, those lions, well, they jump right over our train. And just remember, if a mountain lion does make it on the train, you can always cuddle with it. Once. Yeah, one time. Honestly, though, the thing you have to worry about more than mountain lions up here are the bobcats. And I'm not talking about like the little digger bobcats. I'm talking about real ones. See, it just so happened, although I don't see one up there now, so we're pretty safe. But a couple weeks ago, we had one jump off this end of the tunnel opening and land right in the open car. Luckily, it was a much colder day, so nobody was riding in the open car. But I think he was more scared of us than we were of him because he jumped right back out. Only in Virginia City can stuff like that happen. I would have never thought something like that in a million years had happened. But speaking of tunnels, We're about to go through this really long, dark tunnel again. But I'm curious to know if when we go back up through this tunnel, if you guys think it's darker than when we came down. See, unfortunately, I won't know because I had my eyes closed. Now as we emerge from the tunnel here, you can take a look off the east side of the train. Way off on the distance, you might notice those large gray dumps on that hillside there. Those gray dumps out there are the site of the Foreman mine. That mine ceased operations in 1941 as a result of the outbreak of World War II, as did most of the mines up here. So Uncle Sam needed those miners to go fight in his war. But of all the mines that are up here, you might notice that there's some vehicles on top of that mine, because that's the mine they're hoping to be able to reopen. They've gone as far as even last summer we saw them doing helicopter surveys with LiDAR. The reason they were doing those surveys is because, as I mentioned, they're not allowed to open pit mine up here. And they're hoping to be able to convince OSHA that they know exactly where the ore or the silver ore is. So they're not really going to be exploring a whole lot. They're just going to go straight down and get it. Because the LiDAR can actually tell the concentration of the silver that's in the ore before they even go down there and get it. It's pretty impressive. But then there's the other side where they have actually been trying to reopen that mine for like the past 20, 25 years. And it's changed owners so many times that I don't even know if anything will ever come of it. Also off the east side of the train, you'll notice these large piles of tailings closest to us. As we get closer to the overpass again, you'll notice some large rectangular stones on the ground here. This area here was the Ward Bullion Mining Complex. Myself, as well as the other conductors that narrate this tour throughout the week, we always kind of thought that was a dumb name for that mine. See, the entire time that mine was in operation, well, it never produced 1 ounce of bullion. I guess those guys went to eat lunch. Donkey guys, because I don't see them out there now. Alright, fine, so they wave at us 13 trains a day. Now as we pass back under the overpass here, and clear the tunnel walls, out in front of the train, you guys are going to get a really great panoramic view of Virginia City. And off the west side of the train there, you can take a look on the top of the hill toward the top of town there. You'll see that cream-colored building with the dark red roof on it. That building up there is the 4th Ward School. Back in the 1870s, that school taught more than 1,000 students a day. But that's not what we want you to remember about it today. Today we want you to think it's famous for a slightly more modern invention, convenience that most of us don't even think about today. Back in the 1870s, that was the only schoolhouse this side of the Mississippi that had indoor plumbing. Yeah. Now today that schoolhouse has been turned into a museum. They're open every day and offer tours. So if you guys ever wanted to know what it was like to be a student back in the 1870s, and just how far our educational system has come in 150 years, it's a really great tour to take. You can even see one of those original 1870s toilets for yourself. But don't worry, if you have to go, they won't make you figure out how to use it. Luckily, the facilities have been slightly more modernized since then. Now, as we go by our train yard again here, you can take a look off the east side of the train. You'll see that black diesel locomotive sitting there with the orange stripes on it. I like to point out that diesel locomotive because it's actually got a little bit of Hollywood fame associated with it. See, back in the early 90s, well, that locomotive, they used it in the third movie of a little trilogy called Back to the Future. Yeah, at the end of the third movie, when Marty finally makes it back to 1985, well, it just so happens that that's the locomotive that ran over and destroyed the DeLorean. And I've been authorized to let you guys in on a little secret as well. A couple weeks ago, we had some Hollywood bigwigs up here. So we took that locomotive up to our depot and parked it next to a replica of said time machine. Rumor has it that Back to the Future 4 might become a thing sooner than we think. Now you can take a look out the east side of the train here. You'll notice this fenced off area with the bleachers there. That area there is our rodeo and fairgrounds. Well, every year, the weekend after Labor Day, we basically host an event known as the International Camel and Ostrich Races. Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing either. But it is, and here's something even more wild. Many, 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 many years ago, probably back before most of us were born, camels, believe it or not, they used to run free in Nevada. Yeah, just like wild horses, we used to have wild camels. They, of course, became too much of a nuisance, and we had to round them all up. So now, for these dumb camel races, well, we have to import camels from other states. Now, as we pass under our little wooden trestle again here, you can take a look off the east side of the train on the ground. You'll see some large rocks sitting on the ground next to this trestle. These large rocks here, well, they're known as leverite. See, the miners, when they were taking those rocks across that trestle, dump them in the crusher for the mill over there. All those large rocks you saw on the ground, they were too big for those crushers. So basically, the miners just dumped them over the side of the trestle and said, leverite here. Yep, you guys just heard a boulder joke. I hope you don't take it for granted. Well, as we make our way across F Street here, sadly it means our tour is about to come to an end. Hope you guys have enjoyed your ride today. I've certainly enjoyed having you along for the ride. Before we get back to the depot, though, there is one more thing I can point out to you. It'll be coming up on the west side of the train, right as we pass by this tan A-frame house here. Get closer to that power pole, take a look off the west side of the train on top of the hillside there. You might notice a red brick building that has a white wraparound porch on it. That building up there is the Mackey Mansion, owned by John Mackey, who with his mining claims up here was actually the richest man in the world during his life. In his later years, he even went on to help found the University of Nevada, Reno. Because of his influence in the mining industry up here, well, they created a mining school that they named after him. In fact, still to this day, that mining school on that campus is one of the largest mining schools in the world. And it's called the Mackey School of Mines. Now, as we approach the depot here, I do ask that you guys remain seated until the train comes to a stop, and I let you know that it's safe to stand up and exit the train. Once again, I do want to thank you guys for riding with me today. I realize that when you travel, you have a choice of which short line railroad you choose to ride, and I thank you for choosing the Virginian Truckee Railroad. Also, I want to say that you guys were absolutely outstanding today, so go ahead and give yourselves a round of applause for being so outstanding. Thank you. And for you guys down on the ground, I'll need you to step back so that we can let these folks off my train before we let you on the train. Thank you very much.